And joining us now is Josh Fox, director and producer of the documentary Gasland. It is a critical look at the natural gas issue through the failures of our regulatory agents to actually monitor, let alone administer, true standards for getting it out of the ground. And with us here in Oklahoma, Elena Kraft, a health scientist at the Environmental Defense Fund. And it's a delight to welcome both of you. Hi, Elena. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you. Josh, let's start with you. And before we get going, I just want to compliment you on bringing to everybody's attention the risks associated with something that's attractive for so many reasons, but at the same time, regulators have proven for too long now, not just with energy, that they put industrial interests too often ahead of environmental interests. There's no contest that there are issues with hydraulic fracture drilling. My question is, in your reporting, in your journalism, have you found any mechanism or any techniques that could be administered and tested, in your view, that could do it safely?
No, and the point here is not that we have to get off of fossil fuels altogether, and natural gas is a fossil fuel. The problem here is not with regulators. The regulators are actually dying to do their jobs. The problem here is that you have big oil and gas lobbying Washington to the tune of $50 million a year, can essentially operate above the law. The laws of the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and the Superfund law. All those companies have stated over and over and over again that they cannot do this form of extraction effectively or within their economic means without essentially breaking those laws. And what's happening across America,
but
and I do this every
hold on a second, though, because you said something interesting, which is not within their economic means. I don't know that their economic means should take precedent over public interest, but at the same time, if you would argue that we must eliminate all dependence on all fossil fuels immediately, which means don't use natural gas, since we can't do that, basically your plan is to continue to send U.S. Marines like Ashwin Medea to get killed for foreign oil while you hold out for the magic wind solution, which is not going to happen anytime soon. Is that correct?
That's absolutely not true. The only thing that we will never have to import...
What is your plan, Josh?
The only thing that we will never...
What's your plan, Josh?
I am about to explain to you. The only thing that we will never have to import is the sun and the wind. I do want to show you what the Pickens plan means.
So do you have a plan to run American energy right now on sun and wind?
This is the Pickens plan. Yes, of course. I mean, these technologies are not rocket science. They're available now. The Pickens plan means drill every single square mile in that red area. And what I have seen from the beginnings of this hydraulic fracture development are hundreds of thousands of Americans who are up in arms about the toxic poisoning, about the loss of the character of their basic area, about their civil rights being overthrown, about the water and air contamination that happens when you do hydraulic fracturing. Yeah. Hydraulic fracturing is not a panacea. See, so what...
Got it. I got you. Let me I have another guest, Josh, if you don't mind. I only got a couple of minutes. If you don't mind, I would love to get Elena a chance just to say a couple of words.
Of course.
He says it's basically completely impossible to get any fossil fuel out of the ground or natural gas safely in any way, shape, or form. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, from our perspective, there are risks associated with any natural resource. And at Environmental Defense Fund, I think that we are realists and we realize that natural gas is part of a diverse energy portfolio. What we are concerned about is that regulations are not in place to effectively protect the public.
So that's my question.
Yes.
And what I'm trying to get at is, there has to be a way that we could apply a tremendous amount of public pressure to regulators to raise the standards.
There is, and we do need to apply that pressure. And I think that, there are some certain criteria that need to be addressed, namely well construction, air emissions associated with oil and gas drilling, and then what to do with the produced water once it is extracted.
And are there answers to those questions, I guess, is my question.
Yes.
And because Josh says the answer is no.
Well, what I was saying is actually...
We are working on those issues.
Hold on one second, Josh.
We are working on those issues. We have been working on those issues. The problem is that we need more industry support. We need industry to recognize that the public has legitimate, valid concerns, and that if we work together, we can help solve some of these things. Air emissions, for instance. There are things that we can do to capture vapors from the storage tanks that have been a problem in the Barnett Shale area.
So some of these problems can be solved?
These problems, yes, can be solved.
So if people decide that they want to solve them instead of fight over them, that's possible. Is that correct?
That's usually much more effective.
But it's the wrong
but your
choice.
point, Josh, is that we have to go straight to wind and solar and bypass all fossil fuels.
Well,
have you proposed a plan to do that?
Well, what we're seeing is that the primacy of oil is ending, and you have a lot of different choices. T. Boone Pickens has 800,000 shares of Chesapeake Energy, 500,000 shares of BP. He is going out there and promoting
Isn't that capitalism?
He is promoting his own business interests. This has nothing to do with patriotism. It has nothing to do with independence.
Isn't he putting his money where his mouth is, Josh?
True independence is moving beyond the oil barons of the past, because what we're talking about here is not putting a man on the moon, and that is what we were talking about, what you were talking about yesterday. What you're talking about is not changing the model. The model is still we are dependent on huge extractive energy industry from fossil fuels. We have to move beyond that. Every scientist looking at climate change says we have to have zero carbon emissions. Zero carbon emissions means no more developing of fossil fuels. Besides which, it doesn't even work economically, because as you said earlier in this segment, you cannot separate energy from the rest of the economy that is happening all around it. If you were to drill every single square inch of this map, basically what you have is natural gas in those areas and no other economy. It's devastating to real estate, it's devastating to tourism, it's devastating to the basic character of those areas. You'd be living in a toxic drilling zone. And this seems to be fine with T. Boone Pickens, but it is not a solution. It's not a
Josh,
viable
I'm running
solution.
out of time. I'm running out of time, Josh.
Okay.
I get it. You believe that natural gas will ruin the universe and cannot be solved. I don't know
I don't believe that you should be trivializing my position in that way, because you're trivializing the millions of people who live in that target drilling zone. The choice is not simply between oil and natural gas. The choice is
I'm sorry, Josh,
abound.
I gotta go. I got James Cameron waiting. I got too much going on. I don't have to. You want to make a speech? Put it on YouTube. I want to have a conversation to solve the problem with you. I'm not looking to get a propaganda speech from you any more than I am from Boone Pickens or anybody else. Up next here, however,